Okay, P-Dina, let's continue. Our AMA and Camille Bernacchi 2041 asks, how can the births of Archie and Lily be proven? In England, the parents do the birth certificate. Is there another legal form there regarding the birth? In California, even if you use a surrogate, I read that the real mother's name can be put on the birth certificate if you do a pre-birth order and the agreement is signed by a judge. What do you reckon, P-Dina?
Well, yeah, you can. I just know that in the States, it's a little different. Um, in the UK, I don't know how that works because we know here Archie was born in the UK. You can get one in the States that's not signed. It's just like a copy of the or like there's two forms you can get, and one is not signed. Was that the question in terms of having it signed, the birth certificate?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess talking more specifically in California, though, do you
Mhm.
know how it works there?
Well, my son was born in California, and I know that we've gotten a copy of his original birth certificate with the signatures on it. So, but I do remember because I did a story on this that the birth certificate for Lily looks nothing like the birth certificate for my son and others. It's definitely different. And even the copy that was released by TMZ said this is not like an official copy. So we have never seen the real birth certificate for Lily. We have not seen it. So I know from what I've seen, it's not legit. It's not because I have one and it looks completely different.
Fascinating.
And no one, like, who's going to come out and say anything? Who? You know what I mean? So, like, she can get away with it. That's what I think has happened.
Well, on a similar note, Millie7335 asks P-Dina, will the truth about the alleged children ever be revealed?
I I don't know if it will ever be revealed. I think unless there was a way to call for that officially, which I can't imagine happening, I don't think we'll ever know. But imagine if there were someone coming out later with DNA from from Archie and Lilibet later when they're older, when they're, I think that will always be curiosity about the DNA. And imagine someone trying to get a piece of hair or saliva from these children when they become adults later. Like they're creating this curiosity around the children that goes to levels of science that people will be like trying to get later in life. I think that's a problem for them. So unless they come out and say it like years later, and it's not a big deal because it's so long ago, that's one thing. But it could be a problem for them later, I think, because people are curious about that. And I think unless they kind of put you know, give out the truth right now before it gets to that level, they're going to cause people to do some things, some sinister things around science and finding out that will surprise people because that's going to always be there for people to have curiosity around. um yeah, it's a problem for them, but I don't think it will ever be revealed where they have to, you know I don't think so. See, it says for informational purposes only. Isn't that what it said? The birth certificate?
Yes,
Or not a
not a
valid
valid
yeah.
document for informational
Yep.
purposes only.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's very
Yep.
fascinating,
It's
isn't
not
it?
real.
All right, let's just rip the band-aid off. P-Dina is calling Meghan Markle's bluff. In this latest AMA segment, she drops what might be one of the most damning claims yet in the long line of Markle mysteries. Princess Lilibet's birth certificate? According to her, it's not legit. She's not speculating from a distance. P-Dina says she gave birth in California, just like Meghan supposedly did. She has her son's real signed birth certificate in hand. And the one TMZ and others floated for Lilibet? Totally different layout. Missing info. No signatures. In her words, it looks nothing like mine. When a document as sacred as a child's legal proof of birth comes with disclaimers like that, you have to ask, why? And more importantly, what are they hiding?
And,
It's not.
and then at MSVJ6582, on a similar note, asks, how are the history books going to reflect the con of the century? And I would argue, P-Dina, the jury is out.
Yeah, we're already seeing it, right? The history books are already being written. I mean, this is going down to the levels of Edward the Eighth and Wallace Simpson. We're seeing it right now. There's already been comparisons. Meghan does comparisons, I think, even with her clothing sometimes. I think this is going down in not a good way. I've always talked about that on my channel about how they're making history right now and not in a good way. It's unfortunate. And I think it does give a bad name for Americans, I think, in general, around marrying into the royal family, because we have two very public bad examples of Americans marrying into royalty. And I just wish and had hoped that Meghan would be that good example, especially if she's going to try to represent as a woman of color. So I think Meghan is just doing things that, unfortunately for her, it's not going to give a good legacy for her, for these children. I think it puts disdain on, the royal family in some kind of way, vicariously through Harry. And I really just hope that there is some kind of backtracking around what they've done, that they apologize, because they've never done that before, which is, how can you not apologize for anything and always blaming people? There will never be redemption for them unless they learn to apologize about some of the things that they've done, which they should know are not okay. So the history books are definitely going to go down in a bad way for them, I think, and a not good thing. But that's enticing for some people to see rebels and people do what they're doing. I think Meghan has just put herself in a position to not have the legacy that I think she envisions for herself. It's going to be the complete opposite.
Don't you think as well, P-Dina, so much of this relates to whether Meghan and Harry are able to maintain positive relationships with their children? It's not as easy as people think when you have parents who are very controversial. I mean, we saw what happened when Brooklyn Beckham fell out with David and Victoria over his new wife. And we don't know. Obviously, the children are very young at this point, but if they raise questions in the future once they are adults and they want to know, well, why have I been denied my birthright? Did I lose the right to form a relationship with possibly the greatest ever monarch and Queen Elizabeth II and my own grandfather, King Charles? If they start asking questions, I think actually a lot of the history will be determined by what happens with Archie and Lilibet in the future.
Now we get into the real gray area. California law allows for pre-birth orders, meaning if you use a surrogate, you can still be listed as the legal mother on the birth certificate. So technically, even if Meghan didn't carry Lilibet, she could still appear as the mother, legally. But what's being questioned here isn't just legality, it's honesty, transparency. If there was nothing to hide, why hasn't the palace, or Meghan herself, released a full, official, signed certificate like they did with Archie? And that right there is the most frustrating part for many royal watchers. Meghan says she wants privacy, but she also wants the perks of being seen as the mother of a real-life princess. It's a two-way street, but only one side's being driven right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny. I was just listening to a lady on the radio, and she was talking about that, how we don't really become curious about our parents and their life and their history till we're older, and we start to think, we no longer look at them as just our parents, but we start to become curious about what life was like when they were younger. And that happens to all of us when we get older, I can imagine. And imagine what that would be like for Archie and Lilibet when they find out their relationship to the royal family. That, I think, will bring up so much animosity towards your parents and selfishness from them to just keep them from their royal family. I can imagine that will not be good for them. So, in all the hiding and secrecy surrounding these children, Meghan and Harry are doing something that is going to come back and bite them later in life. Most certainly it will. because I know for myself, if that happened to me, I would not forgive my family for doing that to me. And I think they could lose their relationship with their children later in life once the children start to think critically and look at who their families are, because that's just not okay to do, especially to Thomas Markle, what he's done, like to keep them from their father in America, I mean their grandparent from in America, like that just is unspeakable, to do these kinds of things to your loving family members, and they won't have any close relations with people. I mean, they're going to all have fake superficial relationships with friends of, Harry and Meghan's children, but they're not going to have family. Where's the legacy and talking about your ancestors and understanding you could have been a part of this legacy that your parents kept you out of? That's going to be a hard pill to swallow for those kids later in life, but it will come to Harry and Meghan. I promise you that it will come.
Interesting question here from Bernie Daly, who asks, where is Meghan's niece that she could not take to her wedding? I thought she would invite her over for tea. Nobody is talking about her. And this is Ashley Hale, the daughter of my friend Samantha Markle. And the thing is, P-Dina, I feel like Ashley was just used by Meghan. She was the big reveal in the Netflix reality series, the big FU to Sam. But actually, it feels like she's just been tossed aside now. No invite or feature on With Love, Meghan.
Yeah, she's been tossed aside. I mean, you think about the excuse also that she gave Ashley about not being able to bring her to the wedding and how people have spoken out that that was not true. I'm sure Ashley knows now from other people saying that it was never told to Meghan that she could not bring Ashley to the wedding. And Meghan used that woman, Ashley, for her own show to have this big reveal. And Ashley fell for it. But I think she's starting to question a lot of that. And, Samantha, I'm sure, wants to have a relationship again with her daughter. And Ashley's relationship to Samantha will be a lot stronger, I think, later once she realizes, Ashley, that Meghan used her. So I just can't understand when you see that happen to somebody, people on the outside. What insight does that give you about the kind of person that Meghan really is? To use this woman like that, to then disregard her, because we don't see her. We don't see her on the As Ever or brand. We don't see her using the products. We don't see her, in the on the show that she did. I mean, if she was going to have a show with family and friends, wouldn't Ashley have been the next person to ask to be on that show? The Netflix show? Well, maybe she will be in the second season. I don't know, but we haven't seen her yet. So I think it's very revealing to the kind of person Meghan is, that she only used this woman for this big moment on her show Netflix and then disregarded her. Yet again, that's what Meghan is known for doing, disregarding people. And I think the only redemption that Meghan could ever really have is if she invited all the people in her life again that she has dumped and said she was sorry, and asked them to forgive her. Can you imagine what a big show that would be if Meghan did that? But she would never do that.
No.
We know. But she's got some people to ask, and she won't do it, I'm sure.
This is where things get chilling. P-Dina doesn't just stop at paperwork. She predicts that one day when Archie and Lilibet are adults, people might try to verify their DNA, even go so far as to test hair strands or saliva just to settle once and for all. Are they really royal? Can you imagine the identity crisis these kids might go through? You're told your whole life that you're a prince or princess, only to find people trying to prove or disprove your existence. That's not parenting, that's legacy sabotage. Dan reads a viewer question asking if this will go down as the con of the century. Harsh, maybe. But based on what we're seeing, lies, media manipulation, estranged families, hidden paperwork, it's not far-fetched. P-Dina compares it to Wallis Simpson and Edward VIII, the royal scandal that shocked the world. But Meghan, she argues, will be remembered even worse. Why? Because she came in pretending to be a bridge builder, a feminist, a modernizer, and instead torched every relationship she touched.
Dawn Rebel asks P-Dina, will she always be known as Meghan Markle worldwide? given how she has treated people, rather than the princess or the duchess?
She was introduced to the world as Meghan Markle, and that's how she will be known. She can try to superficially change it, by saying, I'm Megan Sussex now. uh, you are Meghan Markle. That's how people know you, and they will continue to know you as Meghan Markle. A lot of people have already said that they will never call her Megan Sussex because it's not a real name. It's not a real way of addressing her with the name Sussex. So, Megan can, just kind of mark it down that she is Meghan Markle. That's what it will be forever for her.
Beach Girl 6790 asks, on a change of tone, P-Dina, if you could describe fashion of the various royal ladies, is there a common theme with a royal look? And out of the current members of the royal family, whose fashion is the most iconic?
Well, I think the look for all the royals definitely is at another level because I mean it has to be the royalty, right? But I think Diana and Catherine, to me, have had the best dress in terms of how they present their clothing with their body styles. I remember as a young girl looking at Diana's fashion and just being fascinated with the clothes because they just looked so expensive and they just fell on her body so beautifully. And I just that's one of the things that I really admire was her clothing. And then you get to me as an adult and I see Catherine and I'm thinking, yeah, she knows how to wear her clothes in a way that they fall on her so beautifully and her style is so classy and flawless. I don't think I've ever seen this woman wear a piece that didn't fit her right. I think she comes off so glamorous in her clothing. And I've seen some royals kind of like dress in a way that was they did not hit the mark. But I have never seen a misstep with Catherine. And she's my favorite. Definitely Catherine is my favorite.
Yeah, her fashion is amazing, isn't it? But I think nothing will top Diana. I'm a bit of a
Yeah,
Diana
no.
groupie. Uh, from Mary Rebecca 6218. Oh, I love this one. What does Meghan P-Dina think about the state of Prince Harry's baldness? As a vain individual, I'd imagine she doesn't like what she sees.
Yeah, I think Megan is definitely talking to Harry about those little spots on his head, those bald spots. I can imagine Megan is very superficial with that. She doesn't like it. I think she wants him to continue his regimen. I think he has a regimen. I think he's trying to plug in some things there. But he is in a position where it's going to be difficult because that's what runs in his family. And it can be, I think, embarrassing for Megan because she's got that kind of ego where she wouldn't want her husband to come off showing all his baldness and his glory. I think he definitely is hearing it from her for sure.
Let's talk about the Ashley situation because it's heartbreaking and infuriating. Meghan's niece, Ashley, was front and center in the Netflix documentary. Her presence was Meghan's gotcha moment against her estranged sister Samantha. But now Ashley's nowhere to be seen. No brand endorsement. No appearances. No invites. She was used as a pawn, and dumped the moment her scene wrapped. P-Dina says it best. That tells you everything you need to know about who Meghan really is. On a lighter, yet still telling note, one fan asked if Meghan minds Harry's bald spots. And honestly, this was gold. P-Dina straight up says Meghan's probably nagging him about it. And the kicker? Harry made fun of William's baldness in Spare.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? The problem that I have is that Harry doesn't get a pass on this. Because remember, P-Dina, he spoke about William's alarming
Yeah.
baldness in Spare.
Mhm. Wow. Okay, Harry. You got the nerve to talk.
Yeah. And it's like, actually, I would argue William has really embraced his 40s. He's one of those people who is almost thriving in his 40s, more comfortable with himself. And with Harry, it really is quite the opposite. Hence how there's been this clear Photoshop job done on his picture for Better Up. Now, final question in this brilliant AMA, P-Dina, from Molly Levingston 880. For P-Dina, when did you start following the royals? So she's not talking about your channel, but just when your love of the royal family began. I imagine it's something to do with Princess Di?
Well, yes, you know, Dan, of course. It was when Diana got married. I was 12 years old, and I remember waking up at 5 in the morning to watch the wedding. And I was hooked from that moment on. Because you know, we have Disney here, we have all the princesses, and here we have a real life princess. And it was always fascinating to me the way when I first heard Princess Diana talk, when I heard her speak, I was like, oh my gosh, why did she talk like that? And I remember thinking that. And I remember looking at the money in the royal books and thinking how weird the money looked because, you know, I was a young girl. I learned nothing about the UK, and I was just fascinated. She dressed so impeccably. She had like this beautiful voice, and she was marrying a prince. I was hooked. And so from that moment, I bought every book. I followed her life. I wanted to just everything Diana was I consumed myself with it. And so when I was like in my 20s during the relationship with Charles, and you know, during the divorce and all that, like I had all the books, and that's the one thing about my family. They know about me. They can tell you about my fascination with Diana and the royal family, because it was through my fascination with Diana that I became curious about things like Wallace Simpson and King Edward VIII. And then I started to look at their story and the other royals, and then Queen Mary and how they started with charity. I started to understand all the things that made this such an important family. So Diana really brought me into a world that we know nothing about as Americans. We see it very far away superficially, but we're not really invested in it around the work, the charity work. And then later I became more, I was more appreciative of the work of Prince Philip and what he was doing for young people, because I started following Meghan and all these other things. So it wasn't just me talking about Meghan, but really learning a lot about the work, the charity work of the other royals.
Now look who's losing hair. Dan even jokes that Harry's Better Up headshots were clearly photoshopped. So not only do we have identity questions about their children, but now even their own appearance is being airbrushed for public consumption. Wild. What really makes P-Dina so credible isn't just the receipts, it's her passion. She fell in love with the royal family at 12 years old, during Diana's wedding. She followed Diana's whole life, collected books, and even lived in the UK during Diana's tragic death. Now, she's channeling that obsession into honest, fearless commentary. She's not here to hate Meghan. She's here to defend the legacy that Meghan tried to hijack. So where does this leave us? With more questions than answers. A missing birth certificate. Estranged family. Public silence. And two royal kids growing up under a cloud of speculation.
And I lived in the UK. I was actually living in the UK when Princess Diana died. And I didn't go to the funeral because I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anybody. It was like too many people for me. But I sat in front of that TV watching about her death for hours because I was working through a temp agency, and it was just so many things have connected me to her. And I started when I was 12 years old, and it has continued, and Meghan has revved up this surgency in me that makes me want to follow it even more, and to use the work that I do around charity and teaching and education and Americans traveling abroad to really have a voice around all the things that we're seeing with Meghan as this American divorced woman of color, has really drawn me in a very unique way. But it started with Diana, most certainly.
Me too. Me too, absolutely. My goodness. I mean, I was not born for the wedding, I hate to say, P-Dina, but the funeral and actually that whole week in 1997 was extraordinary. It's really hard actually to explain to people who didn't live through that period, because it really did feel like we had lost a member of our own family. And it makes me even emotional thinking about it now, because Princess Diana was a different type of celebrity and royalty. I don't think in my lifetime we will ever see another figure like her. She is that unique. I mean, arguably the only other figure that maybe matches her over the past 100 years is John F. Kennedy Jr., because he had that connection, didn't he, with the American public, and then was also taken in such cruel circumstances. So I'm with you. It was definitely all about Diana. I think it's very interesting. We'll talk about this another time, P-Dina, but looking at Diana in a way sometimes through a different lens now can be interesting. But for me, it all started from her. And I absolutely love your story, P-Dina. And thank you, everyone, for your questions. They were so good. So we'll have to do this again, right? But if you want much more from P-Dina, do subscribe to her brilliant YouTube channel. And P-Dina will be back to normal live with all of the news once I'm back from my cruise next week.
P-Dina says it best. It's going to come back and bite them. And if the truth ever does come out, it won't be because Meghan and Harry confessed. It'll be because their own children demanded it. If you made it this far, hit that like button, subscribe for more real talk, and drop a comment below. Do you think we'll ever see the real birth certificate? Is this royal scandal the biggest cover-up of the decade? Let's talk about it.